Welcome to this Jenkins video tutorial on creating a freestyle job that involves integration of a source code management system. In this video, I will guide you through the process of setting up a Jenkins freestyle job that integrates source code management. And for this purpose, I will be using Git. There is a Git repository already set up for this purpose. This is the Git repository that I'll be using. It is a simple repository that contains two files, a readme file and a script.sh file. The contents of this script file is simple. It adds some text to a file named output.txt, and also it creates a script update underscore ubuntu.sh. So I will open my Jenkins and log in first. Here is my dashboard, which has two jobs at the moment. I will create a new item and give this item a sensible or meaningful name. Since this is a freestyle job, I will start the naming with freestyle job with SCM integration. Then I'll select freestyle project and click OK. In the job configuration page, I will provide it a simple description. This job demonstrates the integration of source code management. I'll go to the source code management section here. So at the moment, none is selected. I will select Git. At the moment, this Jenkins instance has only Git as the source code management tool. There can be other source code management tools also if you have installed. However, if you have been following along my other videos, there should be just Git as the source code management system. Here we need to provide the URL of the Git repository that we are going to use. I will go back to the GitHub repository and copy the repository URL from there. So from here, select HTTPS and copy it from here. Then I go back to my Jenkins job configuration page and paste it here. Next, I need to provide the branch. So in my case, branch is master. However, if you are using your own repository, you might be using some other branch. You need to specify the branch there. For this job, I want to have a post build action which archives the artifacts. So I want to archive the files that are produced by the script.sh script in the GitHub repository. So the files were output.txt and update ubuntu.sh. I also want to delete my workspace after the job build completes. So here is this one. I also want to add the delete workspace step before my job build starts. So in the build environment, I'll select this. Selecting this delete workspace before build starts and after build starts makes sure that our workspace is clean before and after every build. One more thing we need to do here is add a build step. So this step here, this repository URL, when entered here, Jenkins just clones this repository for us but does nothing. However, we want to do something. We want to run that script that is inside that repository. So I'll add a execute sales step here and run that script. I'll make that script executable by this command, and then in the same step I will run that script. This script will produce two files. One of them is output.txt and the other one update_ubuntu.sh. I'm happy with my job configuration for now. I'll save it. Quick build. And here we can see that the job build succeeded. Let's see what's in the console output. We can see that there are some steps regarding Git. So these were done by Jenkins for us. We didn't specify any build step for this. We just provided the Git URL. These two are the steps that I provided in the build step. It executed these steps and archived the artifacts. Then it deleted the workspace, and finally the job ended with a success status. If I go back to the build page, here are the artifacts. In addition to the artifacts, we can also see the repository that was used for this build and also the revision. So this is the commit SHA that was fetched from Git. For this job build, we used a public repository, that is the GitHub repository that I provided is public. So we did not have to provide any kind of authentication. However, in real world, Git repos are private and we need to authenticate before we can fetch data from the GitHub repository or any other source code management system. So there are few steps that needs to be performed before we can have a successful build for a private repository. So let's see how we can do that. You can see it's public at the moment. I will change it to private. Now my repository is private. So let's go back to Jenkins. I'll go to the job configuration page from here. As I go here, you can see that it has some failed to connect to the repository message. So we need to provide credentials for this purpose. So one of the ways to add a credential is by selecting the available credentials from here, and the other way is to add a new credential if there isn't any credentials set up for this purpose. If we read closely here, it also says that support for password authentication was removed on August 13, 2021. So if we want to have a private repository integration, then we need to provide the repository URL that uses SSH. I'll go back to my GitHub once again. From here, I will select SSH and copy this. Paste the SSH URL here, but we still have the error message, but now the error message is something different. So here is host key verification failed. For us to be able to connect to GitHub using SSH, we need to have GitHub in the known hosts file in our server where Jenkins is running. Then we also need to add a public key from that server to GitHub. Then we need to have a credential setup where we also need to provide the private key from the server where Jenkins is running. Next, I will show you how to do that. I will first create a credential from here. So this will be a global credentials which is unrestricted, and for this kind we will select SSH username with private key, and the scope is for everything. We can also choose for Jenkins and nodes only, but it depends on the use case. We can give an ID to this, or we can leave it empty so that it will generate an ID for us. We can have a description. So GitHub SSH authentication. I will give the username. I will also treat the username as secret, and we need to provide the private key. So for this, we need to have created a public and private key in our Jenkins server. So I will navigate to the Jenkins server machine and get the private key from there. This is the terminal from my server where Jenkins is running. I have already created SSH key pair. However, if you have not created any, you need to create it. Then you can get SSH key pair that has the public and the private key. I will get the contents of my SSH private key. I will copy this and paste into the credentials field in Jenkins user interface. I'll select enter directly, add and paste. We don't have any passphrase for that, or at least my private key doesn't require a passphrase. I need to also select that from here. Okay, now the error was gone, but again we got some other error like no ECDSA host key is known for github.com. So the server doesn't know anything about github.com. So this github.com needs to be in the known hosts file in the machine where Jenkins server is running. I will once again go back to the terminal. We need to have github.com in the known hosts file for the root user. So I will go to my root user. I can use the SSH key scan command to add GitHub to my known hosts file. SSH key scan github.com. If you are using, for example, GitLab, then it should be gitlab.com or any URL that is associated with your repository. And I will add this to var lib jenkins .ssh known hosts. So it has added GitHub to the known hosts file for the root user. Now let's go back to the job configuration and see if the error we had before has disappeared. We still have that error. Now the last thing we need to do is we need to add the public key to the GitHub repository from the machine where Jenkins server is running. So I will once again go back to my terminal and copy the public key from there. I will exit from the root and get the contents of my public key. I will copy this and go back to my GitHub repository and add this there. So I'll go to my settings and in the SSH and GPG keys, I will create a new SSH key, paste the public key here and give it a title. Add this. Now that the key is added, let's go back to the Jenkins job configuration page. So now the error has gone away. It might take some time for the error to go away, or it is possible that it just goes away as soon as everything has been done. Now everything seems to be fine. I will save this once again and build it. Yes, the build number 2 succeeded without any error. So it is also possible that you don't have to do all those steps. You can just remove the authentication, for example. So in that case, what you can do is in the dashboard, there is Manage Jenkins, and in Manage Jenkins, there is Security section where you can find out Git host key verification configuration, and you can select no verification at all. So this is generally not recommended, but yes, it's possible. I will go back without making any changes. And we have our Freestyle job with SCM integration. I would like to show you one instance of a job failure. So I will just make some changes here. Let's say I do not have added any credentials here. So I don't care what error there is, I just save it and build it. So as expected, the job failed and it gives those errors. This error here is the same that was shown in the job configuration page, but there are some other errors that is related to Java. It's not always easy to understand what these errors are, but with experience we might be able to deduce what the error is. And if I go to the dashboard, it shows that the job failed, and now the weather is not so sunny since there were 3 builds out of which one failed. The last failure occurred 44 seconds ago. It ran for 1.3 seconds, and the last success was 2 minutes and 22 seconds before. Build number 2 was the last success build, and build number 3 was the last failure build. So this was all for the Jenkins job creation that has source code management integration, more specifically creating a freestyle job with source code management integration. I will log out of my Jenkins. Thank you for watching this video and I hope this was helpful. See you in my next video.